Well, hello there, folks. Barry Landau here with you on another episode of these great videos we're doing for the La Biona Valley Bromeliad Society. And I have a special guest here today, Jerry Robinson. And we're also here with, who's an old friend, and with my old friend, Ken Simpson. And it's a kind of a special day. How you doing, Jerry?
Barry, I'm doing fine. Good to see you. How's our connection? Are the connections okay?
Pretty good. It's pretty good. We're using the economy mode of Zoom. So, we
Okay.
can't expect the world, but this is fine.
All right. So here we are on April 17th. It would have been Paul's 76th birthday today. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and it's hard to imagine he's not with us today to celebrate his birthday. Though the workers, rainforest management had a little altar set up for him with his photo and some of his favorite Tillandsias and a candle, and they did a nice little prayer and remembrance. A few little tears were shed that Paul's no longer with us. We were partners for 48 years. When you think of out of the 76 years he was alive, he was my partner for 48 years. So
Amazing.
I have only been married 42 years to my wife. So that supersedes my marriage. But hopefully my wife and I'll pass that 48 years in not too distant future.
I was going to say it's like four times the length of a normal California marriage.
Anyway, we've been doing this for 48 years, and he's been doing Tillandsias for 50 years. He started out with genus Tillandsia in 1974, where he was just selling Tillandsias at swap meets and art and craft fair. And then in 1976 is when we formed Rainforest Flora, bringing in plants from Guatemala and distributing them on the West Coast.
I think I met him in 1974 at this club's meeting, La Biona Valley club meeting, and then first time I actually sort of did business with him was either the summer of 75 or the summer of 76. I can't quite remember. But that early 70s, yeah, it was genus Tillandsia, clearly remember. And remember there was a nice poster he made saying genus Tillandsia. And what it was in the summer, this is in the summer before I went to college, or one or two summers before. I was I was like 17 or 18. That means I was experienced at growing orchids and bromeliads for a decade. So I was able to actually work in some of my father had a very important art gallery, and most of those people were very wealthy, and a lot of them had greenhouses with orchids and bromeliads. And
Oh, wow.
even back then, people were willing to pay me $15 an hour, which was huge money in the 70s.
Yeah.
But anyways, I used to go to their collections and repot everything, clean up their places, and they couldn't have their gardeners do it because they didn't know what they were doing. I knew everything about orchids and bromeliads. Anyways, the point is, I had one very wealthy lady who lived near UCLA, and at that time, Paul had rented some land I think from the federal government. It was across from the federal building, right on Sepulveda. It was a strip of land that was just right next to the freeway. It's now expensive condominiums, but back then he had that original old greenhouse you guys bought, and he had a huge, beautiful old greenhouse. And it was, I won't belabor the story, but I just want to say that we went through, and this very nice lady, she just went through going that in plots and brought it up to the front, and Paul totaled it up, and lo and behold, it came to like $1,100. These were good prices. And anyways, I packed it in the lady's car because later I was going to take it and go back to her house and put the stuff in the greenhouse and mount some of it on her trees. But before I left, Paul pulled me aside. He said, "Hey, that's really great of you. You just saved my you know what because I didn't know how I was going to pay the rent." And it was a very fun time for all of us. as you say, shortly after that, you guys formed the corporation, and then I think the next incarnation, I don't know if you moved to Venice or that was when you moved to Gardena. What happened
Well,
after? Yeah, go ahead.
so from Venice, we started in Venice in four. So
Right.
I didn't even know what a Tillandsia was until about 76 is when I came down, because we had met in Honduras a couple years earlier on a diving expedition looking for sunken Spanish galleons. And we were down there off and on for 6 months.
Stabilized. There you go. Go ahead. You were diving for your Spanish galleons.
Right, for 6 months. And we were in Honduras and Jamaica, and then off the coast of Colombia. Found a ship or two, but we didn't find the mother lode, the treasure chest. So the ironic thing is, of course, you have to come back to reality, broke college graduates. But we did take buses and we hitchhiked through Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico after that trip in the 70s. And I did not notice the Tillandsias in the trees, and we came through there. So that's kind of ironic that I was immersed in the Tillandsias and the bromeliads in Guatemala, Mexico, and Honduras, and didn't even notice them. And then a couple years later, that was my life's work, the beginning of my life.
But it's easy not to notice them down there because in the areas where they exist, they're like weeds. So you were saying that even though you were down there and ostensibly surrounded by bromeliads and tillandsias, that at that time you didn't notice them. Nonetheless, right. You and Paul came back from Honduras, and what started? You started to ship the plants from Guatemala. How did it work?
Well, we formed a corporation with Bill Harris, who had a company called Tropimaya out of Guatemala, and they were looking for a West Coast distributor for the air plants. And so we were just bringing in the plants from Guatemala back in 76. So we were in Venice on Venice Boulevard at that time. And then we were there for about a year and a half. And then we moved to Mar Vista. And we were on we had that Lord Burnham greenhouse, glass and metal, that they enabled us to rent that on a month-to-month, which was a kind of a risk to move in there only on a month-to-month because the property had been sold. So we had that chance. That month-to-month turned into over a year, and so we were able to expand our business as we grew on that range of greenhouses, which eventually we moved one of those greenhouses to Gardena, and we were on Edison property in Gardena for 21 years.
I remember.
And then from Gardena, we moved to Torrance back in 2000. So we've been in Torrance now for, 24 years. It's crazy when you add all that up and you can.
Also,
I'd like to add that
for me, it's like it was 10 minutes ago you moved to the new place. That's 24 years. Ken, what were you going to say? You have a memory from 70s?
Yeah, I knew Paul and Jerry starting, I think, in 1973, 74, when they came to the La Bellona Valley Bromeliad Society meetings, and I transitioned out as the president back then, and Paul became the president. But during that time, I was the one that found them a facility on Rosecrans in Gardena, which they moved into. And I was an industrial real estate broker at the time, and I told them they could just give me some plants so there wouldn't be any charge at all for me. And at that time, they were genus Tillandsia, and that's when I remember Paul and Jerry and Danita taking over the leadership and did a great job for the society back in the mid-70s.
That was the facility that was it was either under power lines or right next to a power station, right?
Yeah, it was a flag lot that was actually next to a transfer station.
Cool.
And it was
just a section in the building.
Yeah. And I remember it was a nice setup with that same old greenhouse. Well,
that one was 18,000 square feet.
Oh,
now we're in 3 locations with a couple 100,000 square feet. So
Right.
yeah, so it's a little bit of difference between then and now.
Well, also this new facility, there's 3 top of the line greenhouses, and that nice pavement, the cement pavement you put in, and well, it's under the power lines, but that's nice because you can't exist as a nursery in LA unless you're under a power line.
No, you can't. You know, in the location we're at 190th and on Hawthorne at 190th, the traffic and the location. But we did buy the properties, the 2 properties in Rainbow Valley near Fallbrook, and then in Bonsall near Vista, and so that if Edison ever became too hard to deal with or got rid of us, then we had a place to go.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So it's 3 full service. Well, the one on 190th at Hawthorne at 190th is your retail location. The others are your places where you propagate and
We
grow
just
stuff,
grow.
right?
They're not open to the public. Yeah, we just grow. You know, because the plants take so long to grow that you just need to let them sit and not hover over them and expect them to grow too quickly. But
No, that is of course the one issue for all of us, whether you're collectors or growers, is the Tillandsias and bromeliads have a very long life cycle.
yeah,
And once you and Paul determined that you no longer were willing to bring imports in for various reasons we won't go into right now, you guys started growing everything from pups, cuttings,
ups and seed. Yeah,
and as you know, for audience knows, but for a small Tillandsia like Tillandsia ionantha, it's 3 to 7 years to grow something from seed to maturity.
right.
And with the larger Tillandsias, it's 10 to 20 years.
That's right.
So this is not like Color Spot, where they grow marigolds in 6 months and they're marketing them. Everything they do has a 9-month life cycle.
Yeah.
This takes significantly more patience, significantly more capital. It's just fantastic what you and Paul did. And I'm so proud of you guys. Ken and I have seen you guys sort of.
We've
grow up.
we've been through economic downturns. Our original partner, Bill Harris, was assassinated in Guatemala.
Yeah.
We had the fire in Bonsall in 2017 that wiped out 25 years of growing larger, more special plants that now they're gone.
I know Paul had invested a lot of time and energy into the Bonsall location.
Yeah, that was his baby. He just was so proud of that.
But it survived. You guys have survived. You're survivors.
It's beautiful, and we do tours down there. We had the plant propagators there in January from it's kind of a statewide symposium they had, and they visited Altman's, they visited Plug Connection, and they visited a lot of other nurseries in North County, San Diego, and they saved us for last. And most of the comments were, you guys were the best. You guys are doing something nobody else is doing. It's something that we had no idea, what entails to do what you guys do.
And amidst all this, you guys have had to face the onslaught of literally hundreds of internet companies selling a lot of really they're fly-by-night operations usually. They just import plants and dump them on the market. That you guys grow quality plants. I've noticed that when I come there, when I pick up a plant, it's heavy. I mean, even little plants are heavy. And I, as a collector, know that when a Tillandsia is heavy, that screams quality.
And there's the fly-by-nighters, but there's some good ones. Tillandsia International, he's done a good job. Russell Bromeliads, they grow a lot of them out in Florida. You needed all of us because not one company can really promote them. Now that they're kind of ubiquitous across the country, you can go to greenhouse in Michigan, or you can go to Minnesota, or you go to Texas, and you see Tillandsias, you see some of our hybrids. So it's slowly grown. When we started, nobody knew what an air plant was, let alone Tillandsia. And now most people know, but they're still not everywhere, and we're still trying to market them
Oh.
across the country.
On
You
a
know-
global scale, they are almost everywhere. And
Yeah.
as some people in the audience will know, my various planets on Facebook, those are groups. Planet Talansia and Planet Bromeliad, which I started 15 years ago, have become very popular, like 40,000 members. And what's interesting is whether it's Bangalore, Maine, or Bangalore, India, Talansias are there.
Yeah.
They may not be in every small town on the planet, that's yet to come. But really, in that same time zone where you guys went from you guys being one of the only nurseries to being amidst a bunch of nurseries, they have actually become very popular, including China.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to see.
I
Yeah.
wanted to add that people may not know that Paul was an author, and when in the early days in the 60s and 70s, there were some works prepared, but in 1987, Paul published this first Talansia book, and which any serious collector should have. It was like fantastic. And then he came out with this other book, Talansia 2, and both of them are very impressive, fantastic pictures, has a lot of information, and thanks to Paul and his genius, he published these for people like me and others to purchase and
Well,
learn.
and it's an important thing to mention that, and Jerry knows this quite well. Paul was a really almost on the edge of being a professional photographer. I mean, in the sense that he shot just beautiful photos as any good professional would, but he made his living, with the nursery. My point is that those books, the photography in them is just spectacular, number one. And number two, Paul went out of his way to get them printed in the highest fidelity color and the best definition. Before this, any books were, I'm just going to say it, they were crappy. So Paul made a big advance that way by, making not only a book that would sit on a coffee table, but it actually had information that was right.
Right. Yeah, that book, the original Talansia, sold out, became a collector's item,
Right.
$300 to $500 on eBay, I think. And then he thought, we needed a Talansia 2, and then published that, and it's been very popular. And actually, I'm going to be putting at the World Conference, we're going to donate a couple of the original Talansia books to their auction at the World Conference in Florida in the end of May. So that'll be something for some of the collectors to look forward to, I think.
Paul did more than just write books. He participated in a whole series of videos with Barry,
Yeah.
contributing to the education and knowledge in all kinds of areas. And I recommend.
Thank you for bringing it up, Ken. In 1 second, I'm gonna ask to share my screen. Let me get to the videos. So this is just a section from my a view of the some of the videos what I did with Paul. We did videos from about 2011 to about 2015, and they become very popular. Some of these videos of Paul, there's 30,000 viewings. Some of them are less, but it was just nice because in the beginning, perfectly honestly, we're almost running out of time, but Paul was a little bit iffy about going on camera. But I said, first of all, it was great that I'm an old friend. That made it easy. And then I said to Paul, just imagine you're giving a lecture at one of the local plant clubs, bromeliad clubs, and that solved it. And he became a natural on camera.
No, he was.
Right. So that's, for anybody in the audience, it's just under my name, Barry Landau. Search Barry Landau on YouTube and scroll down. You got to scroll down a little, and there's like 50 different videos with Paul in his prime. All right.
He was very comfortable on camera, and he was very candid. He could react or come up with a quip very naturally. He was great. Actually, he became Mr. Talansia, I think, because of those videos around the world, especially in Asia and Japan and Singapore and Taiwan. He was Mr. Talansia.
People used to call him that. I actually named him that. He was called that before I named him, but I named him that for the videos.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay. Screen
Okay.
sharing has stopped. Windows closed. Okay. Now we're back.
Okay. So
Okay. Go ahead.
so we're doing, we wanted to remember Paul today. Nursery's doing fine. We have his son-in-law, Brad Tandy from South Africa, that's taking over the day-to-day business here at Rainforest. I'm still here on a daily basis for promoting and looking for new avenues to sell Tillandsias, to market them. My daughter works part-time as a designer, bringing stuff